3 races into the 2026 season, Australia, the China Sprint, and the Chinese Grand Prix, and Mercedes has won every single one. If you only look at the podium photographs, you would think the championship is already over. But while every camera in the Shanghai paddock was pointed at Mercedes celebrating, Ferrari's Fred Vasseur was quietly explaining something to a small group of reporters. He wasn't talking about a crisis, he was talking about a highly specific, highly confidential FIA rule. Ferrari isn't trying to outrun Mercedes right now, they are intentionally waiting for the rulebook to hand them the exact tools to destroy the Mercedes advantage. What you are seeing on track isn't a Ferrari failure, it's a trap, and Mercedes has walked right into it. To understand the masterstroke Ferrari is pulling off, we have to look past the stopwatch. Vasseur himself quantified Ferrari's gap to Mercedes at 3 to 5 tenths of a second, depending on the session. But here is the secret. Ferrari's chassis through medium and high-speed corners is arguably the best package on the entire grid. The problem lies entirely on the straights, where the Mercedes internal combustion engine produces more raw, terrifying power. But this engine deficit isn't an accident. It is a carefully documented condition that Ferrari is measuring, managing, and preparing to cash in. The true gap between Maranello and Brackley is wider than anyone realizes, and the FIA knows it.
The mechanism at the heart of this strategy is called ADUO, Additional Design and Upgrade Opportunities. The FIA was terrified of a repeat of 2014, where Mercedes built an engine so dominant it ruined the sport for 3 years. So for 2026, they built a safety net. Every car carries torque sensors mounted directly to the rear half-shafts, feeding real-time, raw power output data directly to the FIA. If a manufacturer's engine falls between 2% and 4% below the benchmark, which is currently Mercedes, the FIA grants them one mid-season homologation upgrade and another for 2027. If the deficit hits 4% or higher, that doubles to 2 upgrades per season, plus 30% more engine test bench hours and a reduced cost cap. This isn't just a minor tweak, it is a fully funded opportunity to redesign your engine mid-season while your competitors are completely frozen. And based on the qualifying picture from China, Ferrari's gap seems to be hovering around 0.865%, but the FIA's internal combustion index is kept entirely secret. Vasseur doesn't just hope Ferrari qualifies for this relief, he has publicly announced that he expects it.
This is where Vasseur earns his Italian nickname Il Calcolatore, the calculator. Every other team is treating ADU as an emergency panic button, Vasseur is treating it as a scheduled appointment. He knew before the season started that the engine would be down, and he planned the entire year around this exact moment. Take the race starts, for example. Getting these 2026 cars off the line is incredibly difficult, with many engines needing a 10-second window to spool up the turbos. Ferrari sacrificed overall power to run a smaller diameter turbocharger. Why? Because it delivers incredible, sharp throttle response off the line. That's why Lewis Hamilton mugged both Mercedes drivers at the start in China, and why Charles Leclerc went from 4th to 1st in Australia. Ferrari's aero package and this small turbo are masking their true engine deficit in the lap times, making them a massive nuisance on track. Mercedes has locked out the front row 3 times, but failed to lead out of the first corner every single time. Ferrari's current power unit, internally known as the 0676, is nothing but a transitional solution. It was built on flawed calculations from an engineer who has since left for Audi. Vasseur knows this engine has virtually 0 development margin left. So behind the scenes, Enrico Gualtieri's engine department isn't building a small upgrade, they are preparing a fundamentally new power unit concept. The first ADUO evaluation window was supposed to be in Miami, but due to calendar shifts, it triggers around Monaco in June. This means Ferrari's upgraded Unleashed engine could be dropped into the car by the Hungarian Grand Prix on July 26th. While rivals like Honda are suffering from massive battery-damaging vibrations, and Red Bull Ford is lobbying for a gloves-off fight without restrictions, Vasseur is playing a quiet, precise political game. He even pushed his chassis engineers to work without compromise, telling them the engine relief is coming. Even with this flawed engine, Ferrari is already a massive thorn in Toto Wolff's side. George Russell found this out the hard way in China. He noted that the Ferraris are fast in all the right places. Because the SF26 has such brilliant traction off the corners, specifically turn 13 in Shanghai, Russell couldn't get close enough to pass before the hairpin, losing 5 seconds to Antonelli in the process. The Ferrari is uniquely designed to use overtake engine modes to charge the battery at high speeds. Lewis Hamilton himself noted that the car is a great platform and estimates they only need to find half a second in race trim. Once that mid-season engine drops, that half second vanishes.
Mercedes may have won the opening rounds, but they are fighting a team that is already playing the second half of the season. Ferrari has built a championship-caliber chassis, weaponized their race starts, and publicly backed the FIA into a corner to hand them a completely new engine by July. Every extra race with the current engine is just a condition to be measured and cashed in. The rules of 2026 are about to change, and Maranello is the only team holding the pen. But I want to hear from you. Is Fred Vasseur's master plan going to work, or is the Mercedes advantage simply too big to catch, even with a new engine? Let me know your expert analysis down in the comments, hit that like button if you enjoyed the breakdown, and subscribe to F1 Perspective for the next chapter of this 2026 war. See you in Monaco.